Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to begin in just a minute here. I'm going to try to see if a couple more people are going to hop on, and then I'm going to start. Okay, let's get started. Welcome to the webinar for the Chicago Area Schweitzer Fellows Program. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Karen Loda. I'm a program coordinator for the Schweitzer Fellows Program. And today we have a couple of Schweitzer Fellows who are going to talk about their projects later in this presentation. So before we get started, just a couple logistical things. If you have any questions, as you think of them, please type them in the question box on the panel to your right, and we'll have a question and answer at the end of the webinar, and we'll hopefully get to all your questions. If you have any difficulties, you can call the webinar support line, and also I recommend using, if you're having any audio trouble, to call in with the phone instead of the computer, although if you can hear me, you're probably not having any audio problems. And also wanted to point out that there are some handouts on the panel as well. There are 5 handouts, and you can download those during the webinar to your device. So, the broad strokes of the program. It is designing a year-long direct service intervention. It's prestigious, it's interdisciplinary. You get to work with people from different schools, from different health-related fields. And it hopefully begins a lifelong career as a change agent. It's a chance to get out of the classroom and take some of those things you've been learning and really get to put them into action. And it's a great way to strengthen your leadership skills. So a very brief history about Albert Schweitzer. Albert Schweitzer was an altruist and a doctor who was ahead of his time. And our fellowship is named in honor of his legacy of service and dedication to the betterment and wellness of all people. There used to be a Schweitzer Fellowship program, which was a rotation for med students in Africa. And then 27 years ago, one of the students that went there came back to Boston and looked around his own neighborhood, and he was like, oh, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in my own neighborhood. I don't need to be going to a foreign country. I should be focusing here. So this is when the U.S. fellowship chapters were founded. There are currently 12 chapters around the country. There's one in Houston, one in San Francisco, Ohio, Alabama. And our Schweitzer Fellowship program here in Chicago is in its 23rd year, and it is the largest in the country. We are housed in a nonprofit called Health and Medicine Policy Research Group, which is an independent nonprofit think tank working towards health equity here in Chicago. So now we're going to hear from 2 Schweitzer Fellows who are just going to tell you about their projects they did and just anything that they think that would be useful for you to hear. So Casey, if you want to go ahead.
Hello there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Casey. I am currently a 3rd-year art therapy graduate student at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I was a 2nd year when I did my Schweitzer Fellowship, and I'm currently a mentor. So I recently finished, not this current class, but the class before that. And my project was an intergenerational art group with local high school students in Norridge, Illinois, and older adults experiencing Alzheimer's or dementia in living within a continuing care community called Central Baptist Village. And I trained the young adults in Alzheimer's and dementia and person-centered relating strategies, and then they would work together to support the older adult in their art making for an hour a week. And we ended up having an art show at the end of that. And I think like that was really my highlight of my project, was being able to show the work to the community in a broader sense, and be able to bring some people together who wouldn't normally have had a relationship. And the great part I would say from that too is I got my foot in the door with the community, and they ended up asking me to continue on as an intern and then continue my Schweitzer project. And I feel like that's something that's really valuable about this fellowship in general, is it can set you up to show potential future employers and future health organizations the importance of this type of work, and then set up the potential to continue it in your career. And that's something amazing about the fellowship. In addition to being able to work with so many other people who have a similar mission as you, was also very inspiring, because often in your programs, I found myself only connecting with other art therapists who were like-minded with social justice. And then you realize there are people in all sorts of health-related fields, doctors, nurses, dentists, who also think that way. So it's just really encouraging in that way as well. Trying to think what else I can say. I mean, there's so many great things to say about it, but am I missing anything, or anything else that would be good to check in on?
Just if there's anything you can think of that people applying that you wish you knew when you were applying.
Yeah. Let's see. What would be something good I wish I knew? I think I think it's important to know applying that you are making like a commitment for that year and to who you're working with. And it is completely possible if you know time management and you're able to balance everything. But the people who are great for this fellowship are people who are very dedicated and who have a vision. And if it's not super clear, as long as you have a passion for service and a passion for that, is what will carry you through, because the fellowship is really great about helping you work out the details. So I remember being a little bit unsure at the beginning while applying how exactly everything was going to work. I thought that maybe I needed to know everything before I started, and I will say that that's not necessarily the case. It's great to have a vision and be able to talk about like why you're passionate about your population and what you may want to do. But the fellowship is really there to help you succeed, and they will really work with you if there's any details that need to get worked out or anything you have questions about. So the most important part is having that passion and having that drive beforehand, and then they will kind of help you along the way. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, great. Olivia, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your project.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, you sound good.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm currently a Master's of Public Health student at Benedictine University. For my project, I'm a current fellow for this year, and I'm at the McCormick YMCA, and so it's in the Humboldt Park neighborhood. I'm working with teens who reside in that neighborhood or surrounding areas and go to the YMCA. For my project, it focuses on education and activities surrounding like health education topics that they're interested in. So whether it be like social media, mental health, like physical activity, pretty much my goal is to kind of like give them knowledge, but also give them accessible and free resources, and to do activities in the community that kind of align with their interests or curiosity or things like that. For me, for the fellowship, seeing as how I'm from Chicago, and like familiar with that neighborhood, have family members growing up in that neighborhood, things like that, it's honestly an honor for me to be able to go back and work with youth who are there. thinking about like my personal experiences and also working with them, I think that it helps me. I'm able to develop like activities and education to meet them kind of like where they are and to address some of the challenges they may face, like going to school or maybe at home or just in general. And for this experience, I feel like it's one of those things that's helping shape that can help you be a future leader as well as like in your professional career because you kind of go in with this like superhero syndrome. So you think that the community needs this, they need that, they need all these things. But really, once you talk to the community members and kind of get to know it, even if you don't have a background there, you learn to meet them where they're at. And so you basically like observing and listening to folks in the community and kind of addressing their needs. A lot of times in health, we kind of think of it as like this is a priority, but really, when everyday people are living in the community, that's not, health is not one of the main priorities. So to get, to kind of meet them where they're at, you kind of address the things that like are immediate. And so for teens, it's like peers and things like that. And so that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm kind of getting out of it. Highlights for me. And in terms of like the fellowship in general, outside of my project, to echo Casey's comments, I like the fact that like you get to meet with a lot of people from like various disciplines. So sometimes, like she was saying, you can get kind of like silos. So in public health, you're around a bunch of like-minded public health people, whether for me it's like in child health, but some people are in emergency preparedness, things like that. But then when you really kind of like get into the fellowship and you realize that there are like med students or like in Casey's case, like art therapy students, and everybody has this like-minded goals in their own discipline, it's nice to be around and it's honestly refreshing to me. And two, I think another thing that is really enjoyable if you decide to apply or you get to meet speakers. So we have meetings monthly, and you get to listen to a variety of speakers. And when I tell you, like, I could listen to a lot of them go on for hours, and that's saying a lot because, as students, we can get like tired from listening. But it's like really amazing the people that you get to meet and network with. And so for me, that kind of sums it up. And just to like and wrap this up for me, one of the quotes that I found from the fellowship is by Albert Schweitzer himself, and it says, "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." And so if you love what you're doing, you'll be successful. And so with that being said, if you decide to apply to the fellowship, don't think of it as like a succeed or failure opportunity, because that's kind of what I was thinking about. But you really go into it knowing that it's going to help you to continue to learn and to grow and kind of just develop and continue that passion that you have for the field you're in, working with that community. So that pretty much sums up my part. Is there anything else that I should probably
Oh,
mention?
that was great. And if you all
Okay.
on the webinar, if you think of any questions, Casey and Olivia are going to stay on or try to stay on until the end for the question and answer part of the webinar. So if you think of any questions while you see this presentation that's specifically for them, like feel free to type it in the question box on the side. Great. Well, thank you both so much. So moving on, one second. So like they said, there's many different disciplines, many different health related fields. And this is a great opportunity to meet other people from different disciplines. Like there'll be people studying dentistry, medicine, physical therapy. Sometimes we have lawyers or disability studies students. So you really get to meet these cool other people in different fields. So each year we select 30 fellows and we get around 100 applicants. And yeah, and what we're looking for is diversity of what school you come from, what discipline, your project idea, the population you're working with, the school you're from. Sorry about that. I think I managed to mute myself. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So let me continue. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Always technical difficulties on a webinar. Um, so So you'll be working with a community in partnership with the community, and you can choose a population that you're passionate about. It might be older adults, it might be children, it might be people with low income or an immigrant population. It might be people experiencing homelessness. So it can be a variety of things. So your project will address an underserved community's priority health need. And this project is entirely designed by you, and we will help you, of course, but you're responsible for developing it, refining it, evaluating it, and doing what it takes to make it succeed and hopefully sustaining it. It is 200 hours of service, and at least 130 of those hours are spent in direct service to the community. So it's not like a research fellowship, but it's you doing direct service to a community. Um, and you will partner with an existing community organization, which we'll talk more about later. And you will have the support of mentors. You'll have an academic mentor from your program. You'll have a mentor at your community site, and a recent graduate from the fellowship will be your mentor, as well as the program staff here at Health and Medicine. We're all here to help you. We all want you to succeed. So, so So the structure, the content, layout, ideas, and creativity of each project will be different, and we want them to be different. We want you to be creative. We want you to think of something that is very meaningful to you, very passionate, that you're passionate about, because that's what's going to sustain you through this year. People do all sorts of different things. Each project will look different. Like you might do most of the work for your project over the summer. You might do most of it on the weekends. You might be indoors. You might be outdoors. You might be doing dance, they might involve food. So it can be many different things. And so we've talked about projects a little bit, but the fellowship is also about the cohort, about learning and growing as professionals. So we do an orientation on April 27th through the 28th, and it is required. It's really fun. It's a chance to meet all the new fellows for the first time. We do a mix of trainings and discussions aimed at helping the fellows plan their projects. They're socializing. So we really talk about project design, success strategies. So it's a really fun weekend. We also do monthly meetings at our downtown office. We rotate the day of the week, so we try to make it convenient for everybody. We give you dinner. There are guest speakers. So we just had someone this month talk about advocacy. We've had guest speakers on come talk about trauma or program evaluation. Um, and there's also a mid-year retreat on November focused on like self-care and which is really helpful to the fellows because you're all doing a lot. And also within this fellowship of 30 people, you'll break into smaller learning collaboratives, and you'll really get to explore a topic that you're all passionate about together. I think this year we have a group focusing on adverse childhood experiences, and I know another group went to a social justice film festival, um, and then they discussed that. And then importantly, there's a $2,500 stipend, but there's also the opportunity to raise money for your projects at an event called Fellows Fest. So if you need supplies or you need to rent a space, you need transportation, you need food for your project, whatever it is, this is a chance to raise money for your project. So application deadline is coming up fast. It's February 1st. We do interviews in mid-March, and then you're notified by the end of March if you've been accepted. The fellowship is a year long. It runs May 1st to May 31st, and then you become a fellow for life. So you're going to be partnering with a community site, and if you might have something in mind, maybe you've worked with them before, but it doesn't have to be. We do have a community site guide with more than 100 agencies that we have worked with or are interested in taking a fellow. And if you don't have any ideas about a site, this is a really good place to start. So just let me know if you'd like me to send that to you. And the site can be anything from social services to community outreach. It can be a church, it can be a school, it can be a hospital. It just has to be some sort of community organization. And we also like you to think about how convenient is it for you. Like we don't this is a lot of time and we want it to be convenient. Like is it close to where you live or close to where you go to school? And also thinking about a place that you feel passionate about. And if it is a new site to you, maybe you could approach them and see if they are interested in hosting you. So, oops, I went too far. So why we do this? As you probably know, there's a lot of inequality in Chicago. There can be a life expectancy gap of more than a decade between wealthy and low income zip codes. So yeah, all fellows, we want you to address these health disparities, this inequality. So all fellows need to help individuals or communities that are in some way underserved. Many fellows might address the social determinants of health, or some fellows choose communities that they some way have a connection with. And one of the handouts on the side can be helpful to addressing this. We recommend the Healthy People 2020, the Healthy Chicago 2.0. It talks about health priorities to base projects on. So this is, I think Olivia touched on this a little bit, but this is a really a chance to listen to the community and to work with them and to really empower them and leverage the strengths that they already have. It's not charity work. We want you to think about, yes, empowering them and what do they already have. And just to go talk about a little bit about some other people's projects to maybe get your ideas flowing. This is a current fellow, Mallory. She's a 2018-2019 fellow. She's a Rush University medical student. And Mallory's unique in that she had actually started this project a few years ago, but the fellowship allowed her to expand the capacity and the impact of her work. And her site was Healthy Hood in Pilsen. Notice that Pilsen is pretty close to Rush University, so it's pretty convenient for her. And she established a garden in 2015 when she was a first year medical student. And it's really grown, especially with the fellowship. She's expanded the garden's programming. She now offers cooking classes, chronic disease workshops, health screenings, educational events, art classes, and so much more. And like in this picture, there's the woman eating salsa. I think they have a salsa making class. So she's really done a lot with this site. And another example is Vidya. She was a 2017-2018 fellow. She was a UIC School of Public Health student. Her site was Naggar, which is a home for women who are immigrants and survivors of domestic violence. And Vidya was a public health student, but she actually happened to be trained and skilled in Indian dance. So this was really a cool opportunity for her to combine her passion for dance and her dedication to public health. And she offered these dance workshops to help increase self-esteem and build confidence among these survivors of domestic violence. So another big part of this is the fellowship, while it lasts a year long, once you graduate, you're a fellow for life, and this can be a lifetime thing if you choose for it to be. There are more than 4,000 alumni nationally, and in Chicago we have the biggest, I think, one of the most active chapters. We offer lectures, skills training, networking opportunities, volunteering, mentoring. I think this year we even sent a group to Tulsa for a leadership conference they were having. So it's a great opportunity to continue a life of service and involvement. And a lot of actually Chicago fellows have gone to other cities and noticed that there wasn't a Schweitzer program there, and they decided that they were going to start the program there. So I think in San Francisco, Houston, they founded their own chapters. All right. So application due February 1st. It's coming up very soon. And we pick 30 fellows. You'll download the application. It's a Word document. Most people submit it by email, but you can do regular mail or hand delivery is okay too. Um, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to go through project ideas or rough drafts. Um, uh, we'll be looking at the merit of the projects proposed, the individual statements, but also the diversity of disciplines in schools and diversity of projects and communities served. Things you should talk about, maybe previous volunteering. Why do you want to do this fellowship in addition to your heavy commitments to school? Um, and it is not required that you have a site 100% ironed out, but it is really recommended that you do if possible. We understand that project proposals may evolve over time and an applicant since the applicant applies and since the fellowship year begins. Most fellows need to be flexible, they need to evolve, and their project changes a lot since their application. So just keep that in mind. And yes, so please reach out to us. Again, interviews in mid-March, and we'll announce it in late March, early April if you've been accepted. So now let's move on to I'm going to start looking at the questions here. Let's see.
I'm also on the call. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Maya Bauer, she's a program associate with the Schweitzer Fellows program. And she has hopped on to help us out with any questions. Let's see. So the first one is someone is wondering if I am a first year medical student. I will be taking my board exams in May 2020. Given that the fellowship runs from May 2019 to May 2020, I am wondering if it's possible to complete the fellowship early, perhaps in January, February 2020.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that first. I want to apologize. The muting issue was totally my fault. I was in a very important interview earlier, and I couldn't be on from the very beginning of the call. So I was joining a little bit late, and then, of course, I had to mess with the little control panel. So I apologize for that. My fault. That is a great question. To our listener about the boards in 2020. We have a lot of M2s that come through the fellowship, and we have them structure their programs exactly that way to figure out how to make sure that they have time to study for their boards. Often that looks like front-loading a lot of the work and being wrapped up primarily by that time. However, there are a few activities that still happen, but they're generally like one night meeting or our celebration of service, which is our graduation ceremony, which is one night in April. So we're not requiring folks to do any of their service hours later in the program year.
Great. Thank you, Maya. The next one is, do I need to know what site I want to do my service at while I am applying?
Yeah, so Karen just mentioned this, but it's a great question. We do not require that you have a site ironed out when you apply. Some people even apply with 2 ideas of sites or no idea of a site. So you don't have to have 100% all the logistics worked out. This wouldn't be launching until May. So there's still quite a bit of time, but it does really help your chances of being selected if you've had a conversation. So you can come into an interview and say, I spoke with the site and they're excited about the project, or I've reached out and I'm hoping to hear back from them. That gives us the clarity that you've done some of that forework and that you've actually thought, where would this live? How would it look? And helps us understand your process a little better.
Great. And the next one, are the 200 hours of service done during the summer or throughout the whole year?
It's a great question. We encourage people to take different approaches, structure their projects however makes the most sense for their school year, also for their site. So some sites have most of their availability in a certain part of the year or time of the day or time of the week. So we want you to keep all that in mind. That being said, we are a year-long fellowship. So we want people to be able to front load some of the work and do maybe a large portion of their work in the summer. But the cohort model is really important to this fellowship. So we need you to be engaged all year round. Whether that looks like doing an hour a week at your site or 3 hours every other week, while you have done most of your hours at the beginning, that's fine. We just want to make sure that you're still committed to being a presence at your site throughout the year, and also being really engaged with the fellowship, showing up to meetings, trainings, that sort of thing.
Great. Next question. The site guide didn't have any organizations in the Evanston area. Is that within the geographical area? And are you aware of any organizations there that may be willing to host?
So if there are sites that are not in the site guide, we should say that the site guide is not a comprehensive list. So yes, Evanston is within the area. Anything within the quote-unquote greater Chicago area, as long as it's convenient to where you're going to school, and or where you're living, something that will really make sense logistically for you, we're open to different sites. If there's nothing listed for this specific area that you're looking for in the site guide, then we encourage you to do some of that footwork yourself. Go around and find some organizations, do some Googling, try to find something, or connect with us here at the program office, and we can do some outreach to Fellows for Life, so graduates of the program, or some other people in our network, to see if we can help connect you to somebody.
Mm-hmm. And specifically Evanston, I feel like there have been fellows who have done projects there in the past. I just can't think of any off the top of my head. So like Maya said, if you want to get in contact with our office, we might be able to answer that more specifically. Okay, so the next question is, I think you mentioned this, but are we able to continue and build on the work of previous fellows? And the answer
Yes,
to that
absolutely.
is yes. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Kate.
I don't know if there's anything you want to add to
Sure.
any advice
Yeah.
for building on previous fellows' work.
Yeah, I'll add to that. It is a great idea to add to somebody else's program, to find a project that's already started and take it over. We encourage that, partially because we want community work to be sustained. So if you're able to take on a project that somebody else has already done, we encourage you to think about what you bring to it, right? So we don't just want you necessarily to come in and say, I'll do exactly what this person did, because part of what we're looking for you to do is think about being imaginative and creating something that you have some ownership of. So we want you to think about, for example, if somebody is doing a literacy program, maybe add a component, or add something that maybe you have a history of teaching mindfulness. Maybe add that component to that project to make it your own. But definitely having a warm handoff and some established relationship with the site is definitely a positive. So if there is a fellow that you know, a current fellow, or even a past fellow whose project you'd like to take over or reinvigorate, we encourage that.
Great. And then the next question is there a minimum number of credit hours I need to be enrolled in during 2019-2020 to be eligible?
That is a great question. I think the answer, so I'm going to give you the answer I think, and then we'll follow up with you. If you want to send us an email, we'll make 100% sure about that. I think that you have to be considered an active student. So you have to be taking some coursework and have a host institution that considers you an active student. I don't believe we have minimum requirements on credit hours, but you have to be, for example, we need you to have a mentor at your academic site who's responsible for making sure that your project is in alignment with your academic needs and goals. That relates obviously to that question we had a few minutes ago about the timing of the board exams. That academic mentor would be the person that you would rely on to help you figure out that scheduling and make sure that you're being responsive to your academic needs. So you have to be in good standing and active at an institution so that they can mentor you and consider you a full student.
Great. And then I think this might be the last question, unless anybody has any more questions, or if you have anything specifically for Casey or Olivia. So here's the last very good question. I noticed that you said that we need to complete 200 hours of service, but at least 130 should be in direct face-to-face work with the organization and target population. What are the other 70 hours supposed to be?
Excellent
So,
question. Go
yeah,
ahead,
very
Sarah.
good question. Oh, so those other hours will be like the monthly meetings count towards that, and then since there's a lot of planning, the others will be administrative and like administrative hours, like planning for your project.
Yeah, we also
Um,
count the collaborative learning. So you'll be working in groups with other students to learn about something, and those go towards those 70 hours as well. The main takeaway from that hour breakdown, though, is that it's a primarily face-to-face service fellowship. So you don't want to have a project that is going to take half the time planning, right? Because that's not how we allot the hours. So we want you to think of something that's going to be planning wise pretty easy for you to take on, maybe utilizing existing curriculum or as I mentioned before, taking over somebody's project. Those kinds of things really help to maximize your efficiency without getting bogged down with planning, because you could obviously, we're not going to say you can't plan more than 40 hours. We forbid it. We're going to stand in your room, but we don't want you, that won't count towards your 200 hours. So we want to make sure you're being the most efficient so that you can, maximize your impact in the community.
oh, and we got one more question came in. Can the planning that I do before the May 1st, 2019 date that goes into developing a program such as a summer camp go into the 70 hours? I guess when
Historically,
do your hours?
I think the answer
Yeah.
is no. You have to have submitted a finalized project plan, and before you submit that with signatures from your site mentor and your academic mentor, you can't start officially accruing hours. So anything that you do beforehand should be preliminary, like reaching out to the site, establishing a relationship, but not the in-depth work, because that won't count towards your service.
Great. Okay, that looks like the last question we have, but if Olivia or Casey, Maya, you have anything else you want to add before we sign off? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for attending. Please reach out with any question, with any ideas. Thank you, Olivia and Casey and Maya, for all your help
No
with this
problem.
webinar. Thanks so
My
much.
pleasure.
Good luck. Good luck with everyone applying.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Bye.
Bye.